Anything jump out at you from chapter 3 that you guys want to talk about?
At your local Barnes & Noble, Corey.
I was gonna say Amazon, but then when it banned me.
I'm gonna.
You could download it for your e-reader, your
Okay.
Nook, if you wanted to.
That
Okay.
is true. Yes.
Go ahead, Kessa.
It's haunted.
Yes. What do you mean by that?
I can't find buttons on my phone. That's the chapter where he starts understanding a little bit more where he is, and I'm sorry about the radio.
No, she's not. Maybe she is. I'll never tell.
She might be.
Yes. So where is Lewis? Lewis in the book is starting to understand where he is now, and where is he?
Apparently,
Go ahead,
nobody
Wash.
understands where he is.
Seems like a welcome place for heaven. Not quite heaven, but a welcoming area.
Yeah. Like an entry point, if you will, yeah. And what's notable about it? What is this
isn't?
place like? Sorry, go ahead, Lincoln.
What isn't notable about it?
Ho ho!
I am quite curious.
Kessa has a tiny dog.
Yeah.
No, she doesn't.
It's through the court, so it's a neutrino dog.
I know, right?
Sorry.
What is the book called again?
The Great Divorce
Okay.
by C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
There are 2 copies on Amazon, so don't buy the cheaper copy because every letter is above the one below it.
Don't be thrifty. Got it.
Don't they have a PDF of it?
I bought the cheapest one. It's fine.
Yeah, Kessa shared a PDF, but I don't have the link.
I'll still listen to the book free on YouTube.
I got mine from Kazarok again, but I couldn't properly open it up yet, everything, so I have to wait a little. Sorry.
That's it. So, to kind of summarize, the bus that he's riding on stops, comes to rest in kind of this near heaven, if you will, like Wash was saying, kind of an entry point for heaven. And I think sometimes when we have this idea of heaven, it's this idea of like a place with like clouds and very misty and kind of bright, but nothing's really defined. And this is very much the opposite of that. This is a very bright place, but everything is there and real. It's so real that everything else seems unreal in comparison.
What an image that is.
Yeah. So on page 21 of my book, and there's tons of different versions of this, so it's not necessarily going to be on 21 of yours. Lewis is kind of taking it in. He says, then some readjustment of the mind or some focusing on my eyes took place, and I saw the whole phenomena the other way around. The men were as they had always been, as all men I had known had been, perhaps. It was light, the grass, the trees that were different. Let's try again. It was the light, the grass, the trees that were different, made of some different substance, so much solider than things in our country that men were ghosts by comparison. Moved by a sudden thought, I bent down and tried to pluck a daisy that was growing at my feet. The stalk wouldn't break. I tried to twist it, but it wouldn't twist. I tugged till the sweat stood out my forehead and had lost most of the skin off my hands. The little flower was hard, not like wood or even iron, but like a diamond. There was a leaf, a young, tender beech leaf, lying in the grass beside it. I tried to pick up the leaf. My heart almost cracked with the effort, and I believe I did just raise it, but I had to let it go at once. It was heavier than a sack of coal. As I stood, recovering my breath with great gasps and looking down at the daisy, I noticed that I could see the grass, not only between my feet, but through them. I was also a phantom. Who will give me the words to express the terror of that discovery? So, I think we sometimes think of heaven in kind of this misty, almost ghost-like attitude, but when Lewis gets into this near heaven, and it's talked about later how this, like when you get further into the country, it's much harder and much more real there. He realizes that the things that he's used to are the things that are unreal, and the people that are around him are ghosts by comparison to the environment that they're in. He talks about later how the grass is so firm that it cuts into their feet when they walk, and the water is so firm that he can actually walk on it because he's unreal by comparison.
What chapter was that?
Chapter 3.
Okay.
Just about to ask that. Thank you, Bean King.
So that's one thing to note from chapter 3, and it kind of just that's the setting that we're going to be in for the rest of the book. And the other thing is that it has this kind of air of temporariness to it. So he talks at one point about how the light and coolness that drenched him were like those of a summer morning, an early morning, a minute or two before sunrise. Then he keeps talking about later on, it's page 23 of my book, near the end of the chapter. The promise or the threat of sunrise rested immovably up there. So it's like this place where day is just about to start. And then, so he came up with in the bus with all the rest of the spirits, the ghosts, as he's now calling them. And then people start to come. Real people who look ageless start to come to greet the ghosts. Go ahead, Wash.
Well, I just noticed, I read it twice this week, and I know something the second time through I didn't catch the first, which was when he's describing it, he goes, "It gave me a feeling of freedom, but also of exposure, possibly of danger, which continued to accompany me through all that followed. And the impossibility of communicating that feeling, or even of introducing you to remember it as I proceed, which makes me despair of conveying the real quality of what I saw and heard." I just thought it was interesting because as I reread it, I had completely forgot that part that C.S. Lewis obviously pointed out that he wanted everyone to remember.
Yeah, that's a good point. And he does bring that up a couple more times, but yeah, not for a couple chapters. Good point. All right, that's chapter 3. Pretty short, kind of sets the tone. Now, what we're about to walk into for the rest of this is encounters between the people, the real people, and the ghosts. The ghosts are the ones who came up in the bus. So, in chapter 4, we have our first encounter between the big ghost and some solid spirit. Now, so the spirit has come to greet the big ghost. The big ghost is the rough guy who was kind of beating everybody up on the bus. Who is the guy who comes to greet the big ghost?
His employee who murdered his friend.
Yeah. Which means what? What's the implication of that? Means that the guy who murdered his friend is in heaven, since he's there greeting him. How does the big ghost take to this? Go ahead, Wash.
Complains about it.
He doesn't take to it very well, and I think it was interesting that also something I caught the second time through was C.S. Lewis begins by talking about him as the big man. and changes it to the big ghost. And then the pronouns change, and he stops referring to him as he and him, as it and its. So it's as the man rejects the real person, he becomes less and less substantial, and becomes basically just an it toward the end of the chapter.
That's a great point. I hadn't even noticed that. The spirit that comes and greets him is referred to as he, but the ghost becomes an it, and its. Interesting. So he's becoming more and more dehumanized. Very good catch. So, is the spirit, the murderer, or the guy who had murdered his friend, rather, the spirit comes to greet him, is he ashamed of himself?
No.
Why? Go ahead, Cass.
I would say yes and no. Like, he was, but he accepted that, and now he doesn't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah. Why doesn't he have to think about it anymore?
Because it's all right now.
Yes, if you look at, it's 27 in my book, it's probably the third chapter, let's try that again. The third page in chapter 4. He said, the ghost asks the person, no need to bother about it? Question mark, about killing the guy. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? And then the person responds, no, not as you mean. I do not look at myself. I have given up myself. I had to, after the murder. That was what it is. That is what it did to me. And that is how everything began. So, it's kind of a trick question, is he ashamed of himself or not? He knows that the murder was wrong. And that's how it began for his, for him to come to this change. But in this new environment, in this kind of entry point to heaven, he doesn't think about himself. There's other things to be thinking about. He does no longer looking at himself. Now, how does that compare with what the big ghost is doing? Is the big ghost thinking about himself?
Maybe a little.
I'm at chapter 4, but I don't see where we are in the book.
It's most of chapter 4 is about this conversation.
I'll looking for. Oh,
So my question was, how does that not thinking about himself compare to what the big ghost is doing? Is the big ghost thinking about himself?
Absolutely. And it's also like the big ghost is, as the spirit has released his past and been wiped clean of it, and the big ghost is absolutely still fixated on what happened in life, which has no bearing anymore on what's going on now.
Right. Exactly. Yep, and it's 28 in my book, the page. It's probably like the 4th or 5th page in chapter 4 and everybody else's. But he's talking about himself, and he says, that's just what I say. I haven't got my rights. I always done my best, and I never done anything wrong. And what I don't see is why I should be put below a bloody murderer like you. Then the person replies, who knows whether you will be? Only be happy and come with me. The ghost replies, what do you keep on arguing for? I'm only telling you the sort of chap I am. I only want my rights. I'm not asking for anybody's bleeding charity. Important line there.
I think the next line is more important.
Yeah.
What's the next line, Wash?
Well, now I gotta find it.
Then do it once, ask the bleeding
I'm actually
charity.
right there, strangely
Everything
enough.
is here for the asking, and nothing can be bought. Is that right?
Yep. So, what's the ghost's holdup? Why is he refusing to enter heaven?
Because he can't forgive his guide.
Maybe.
Held by regret?
Go ahead, Cass.
Because he wants to get in on his own merits.
Yes. Yep. Because he wants to get in on his own merits. He's convinced that he should get in because he lived a just life, and the other guy should not be in because the other guy did not live a just life. He can't get past himself. His pride is holding him back. He continues to say again and again he doesn't want charity. So the line after the line that Corey just read, that may do very well for you, I dare say. If they choose to let in a bloody murderer all because he makes a poor mouth at the last moment, that's their lookout. But I don't see myself going in the same boat as you, see? Why should I? I don't want charity. I'm a decent man, and if I had my rights, I'd have been here long ago, and you can tell them I said so.
See, right there, though, it sounds like I don't want to go on the same thing as a murderer. It sounds like that's part of the reason he won't go in.
Stubborn.
Go ahead, Dodge.
I haven't read the book, and I'm just dropping in because, well, I feel like I want to go to these. But definitely sounds like he's that's an evil laugh. I feel like I made the wrong decision now. What was I saying? Yes.
You're good, Dodge. Ignore it.
He thinks he's better than the murderer because he didn't murder anyone. He did all these good things. So he doesn't want to be treated the same way.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he's demanding justice be done. But justice can't be done, and if it did, he wouldn't be able to get in either. And the other guy tells him that. He says, "You weren't a decent man, you didn't do your best. None of us were, none of us did. Lord bless you, it doesn't matter. There's no need to go into it all now." And then the ghost replies, "You," gasped the ghost. "You have the face to tell me I wasn't a decent chap?" So they get into this thing about how the ghost was rough on his employees and rough to his family and things like that. And the ghost says, "You mind your own business, young man," said the ghost. "None of your lips, see? Because I'm not taking any impudence from you about my private affairs." And the other has this great line that says, "There are no private affairs."
Yeah, what a great line.
So, the ghost is getting all hung up about right and wrong, and the other guy's telling him, "Look, if it were about justice, right and wrong, getting in our own merits, nobody would be in here. So thank God it isn't about that. So, accept the God's grace and get in." But the ghost can't. He can't accept it. And part of it could very well be unforgiveness towards the murderer. I think the primary motivation, though, is pride. He sees himself as better than the murderer and is unwilling to let go of his identity as the guy who does what's right in his own mind. And he doesn't want any part of heaven if that's not what it's about. If people who haven't done what's right are in there, people who he doesn't think should be in there, then he doesn't want to be in there. He doesn't need anyone's bleeding charity, as he says, which is another good line. Go ahead, Corey.
Isn't that similar to the story about that Jesus in the Bible talked about the one that prayed to the one that was a Pharisee and one that was a tax collector? Isn't that the similar story? The one that would pretty much wanted to get under its own merits, it would, and the other one was praying for forgiveness.
Yes, it's also similar to another story we've talked about recently. The story of the two lost sons, colloquially known as the prodigal son, perhaps better known as the prodigal god.
Dun, 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 dun.
Timothy Keller.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the two.
Or you know.
So how does it end? Does the ghost go into heaven, or does he go back to the bus? The bus.
It ends with him just telling him off, and doesn't really come to a conclusion.
Yeah, go ahead, Kessa.
Oh, I was just gonna say he gets to be right.
Yeah, he gets to be right. He gets to have his way, even though that means not going into heaven. So he almost seems happy about it, or somewhat smug about it in that last paragraph rather. So that's the trick, is it? Shouted the ghost, outwardly bitter. And yet, I thought, there was a kind of triumph in its voice. It had been entreated, it could make a refusal, and this seemed to it a kind of advantage. So, then he turns him down and he says, I thought there'd be some damned nonsense. It's all a bloody click. Tell them I'm not coming, see? I'd rather be damned than go along with you. I came here to get my rights, see? Not to go sniveling along on charity tied onto your apron strings. If they're too fine to have me without you, I'll go home. It was almost happy now that it could, in a sense, threaten. That's what I'll do, it repeated. I'll go home. I didn't come here to be treated like a dog. I'll go home. That's what I'll do. Damn and blast the whole pack of you. In the end, still grumbling, but whimpering also a little as it picked its way over the sharp grasses, it made off. So, he turns around, goes back to the Grey Town, to hell. Because he can't have his way in heaven.
Anger. Resentment.
Again, good catch, Wash. The change to it, I did not catch it on any of the previous read-throughs too, but he's right. It changes as he makes his choice more and more. Lewis starts referring to him as it instead of he. I knew someone was going to call me on that.
Did I miss something?
Just Kratos being a smart aleck.
No one cussed.
So, we have our first exchange between a ghost and one of the people. And the ghost turns the person down and goes back to hell. I said keep an eye on, how many of these we have, and keep an eye on what the reasoning is. And on this one, I think we've kind of landed between both resentment and pride, trying to have his own way. So, any other comments or things that jump out to you about this exchange before we kind of close out? Oh, sorry. There's a lot of shouting in the next room, so I assume some sort of football thing's happening. I looked back and saw orange lights. Okay, Wash first and then Kessa.
Well, Cass can go first.
It's interesting that the ghost calls where he's been. He says he's been walking the streets down there and living in a place like a pigsty all these years, but he still chooses to go back to it.
Yeah. Which is frightening, right? I mean, even from just the description that Lewis gives of the two places, it's clear that the bright place, which is standing for heaven, is a much, much better place than the Grey Town. Grey Town's not even really real. The people are drifting apart. There's not really any relationships. Everybody there is unhappy by their own admission. and yet the ghost is still choosing to go back there, which is scary. Go ahead, Wash.
Well, mine's kind of along the same lines. It's a kind of a big thing about the whole book, and then a theological bombshell, which is basically growing up in several dozen churches. There's a lot of precepts of Christianity that I'm trying to get straight, and one of which is, do we choose to enter heaven, and can we lose it? Because a lot of churches have told me that we can lose it.
Great question.
Oh man.
I told you.
Oh man.
4-hour discussion.
It always comes back to this. It always does.
It's kind of what the whole book's about, so.
I'm going to have to say it could. Just because if you look from Old Testament to New Testament, it has happened.
I'm going to say, wait till the week after next week and we'll talk about it because it's actually in the book.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm reading ahead today. I read through it and I'm like, oh, if anybody brings this up, this is going to be the perfect answer. So that's so we're waiting until the week after next. Just kidding. It'll be the week after that week because that's the Super Bowl, and we're not doing book study in the Super Bowl.
Oh,
Hey.
priorities.
Hey,
We will talk about that week later as to if we want to do it later in the week or the day after or what. But yeah, we will be coming to that because that is covered by Lewis. I don't want to steal his thunder on that. Hang on, Mario. I was going to check the text to make sure there's something I need to call out there before I call on you. Okay, it was just football being bitter. Okay, go ahead, Mario.
I was thinking regarding salvation, people who are saved stay saved because those who God called, He justifies, He sanctifies, He glorifies. I don't remember exactly anymore where this verse is, but you know what I'm thinking about there. Done so far.
That's it. Yeah, good thoughts. We will, like I said, we'll talk about that more in a couple of weeks. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because to that way lies endless debate. We could even do a whole debate night on that if you wanted to. We've done that before. That wouldn't be a bad thing to do around here. But I don't want to get too distracted from the core of the book off of that. But in a couple of weeks we'll touch on it.
Very curious about taking a break just because of some ball game.
It's Mario in America. It's like their national sport, football.
Not all.
Okay, not all, but national. It's like Canada hockey.
I know it's
hockey's
really
the
big,
best,
but
so props to Canada.
It's one of
I
the
mean-
biggest events of the year. Like in
It's like the
country.
World Cup.
Yeah.
Bigger
I
than
know,
that in
I know
America.
it's a bit like that, but still, I'd rather have book study, Bible study, and whatnot instead of a sports game like this.
Returning to topic.
Like I said, we'll talk about that later.
Okay. Sorry,
All right,
I thought
anything
you
else?
meant we were talking about the perseverance of the saints, etc. There later.
Oh man, he's even bringing up the name.
Perseverance of the saints?
Ugh.
Preservation of the saints? What's so
No,
bad
I-
about this?
No, you're fine. You're just.
Deep discussion.
Looks like it's giving away the Bible study too.
Yeah. It will definitely be in Bible study because we are in Romans 8.
Yes, we are.
And what's funny, I am asked to talk up a little bit about this too in the Bible study that I have to host.
So, yeah. So I'll just, I don't know. I'm trying to say
Yeah.
how much I want to say on this. As I say
Sorry.
nothing with lots of words.
I'm
Um,
surprised Kratos hasn't said anything.
We will talk more about it. We talked some about this last week in Bible study. We'll talk more about it next week in Bible study. And we'll come back and talk about it more. I have a little bit different opinion on it. I'm kind of in a minority. I'm an Arminian who believes in perseverance of the saints, which is which there is a small minority that believes that, and I'm part of it. But yeah, we'll kind of go over the main views on it at some point too.
Well, I don't know what I am. I just label myself a Christian.
Well, you'll be able to label yourself more culturally, I guess, religiously.
We'll put you in a box
If
more
you can't detect the sarcasm in my voice, it's there.
more spiritual.
There you go. There you go.
There's that
I like that
sarcasm.
one.
All right. Any more discussion on the chapter 4 before we get out of here? Josh is being snarky.
That's
That wasn't
nothing
snarky.
unusual.
Shut up, Winged. That wasn't even snarky. I was being serious.
I'm sorry. Did I step on your toes?
No, you didn't step on my toes. I just wasn't being snarky.
We need Bandit's soundboard in here again.
Yeah,
I don't have a whole lot of qualms with being snarky. I mean, I can be, but I wasn't being that time.
There we go. Nope, we're all good now.
Football.
Love
you'll
you
be happy
guys.
To, you'll
Love
be
you
happy to know
guys.
football that my wife has picked up that statement. The dog dragged over the gas grill on the deck today, flipped the whole thing over. She walks out there. What an idiot! Great. LP tank rolling across the deck. Wonderful.
Alleged
Oh,
wife.
dear.
Alleged wife.
That's the same one. All right.
You have a
All right.
very unique dog.
So next week we are going to be. If you could read chapters 5, 6, and 7 for next week. What? So many on. Well, it's short and it all kind
They're
of runs
tiny.
together.